Today is Monday, Chof Elul Tafshin Ayin Daled. We are in Teres Menachem, Sefer Mamar Tafshin Yud Aleph, Tafshin Yud Beis. In the Mamar Yud Gimel Hamas Tafshin Yud Beis, Nosato Lireiecho, page Shin Lamed Ches. We are learning about the similarity between Nisim, Nes, and Schar Mitzvah, that which comes about through a miracle and that which is accomplished through a mitzvah, which is the idea of drawing down Hashem's transcendent light into the world. And the last part that we learned was where the Rebbe explained the different perspectives, the higher perspective and the lower perspective. The lower perspective being Lamata Yesh or Lamaila Ayin, that the Yesh is down here and the nothingness, as it were, is up there, so to speak, meaning to say that the created being feels himself as an entity, as an existence, and does not grasp his source. That's why he refers to his source as ayin, nothing. Whereas the perspective from above is that Lamaila Yesh, that the true Yesh, the true existence, the true being is above, Ulamata ayin. And what is nothing is what is below, because what is below that is bottle, is nullified to Hashem. And the Rebbe explained that the Yesh, they're not only not inverse, but also the Yesh below is not a true Yesh, whereas the Yesh above is, and the Ayin below is not a true Ayin, and where the Ayin above is a true Ayin. And the Rebbe explained that these perspectives are true. In other words, even the lower perspective is also true. That's a perspective from the point of view of Mamar Nosato Lireiecho, God's immanent light that fills worlds. And then I've explained that there are grades, as it were, in truth. Sfas emes, emes lamita, the difference between two Torah opinions before halacha and the Torah opinion so far as halacha is concerned. One emanates from Shem Elokim, one emanates from Shem Havaya, as explained yesterday. Now, let's understand what happens when a Yid does a mitzvah. When a Yid does a mitzvah, he draws down Das Elyon, the upper perspective, into Das Tachten, into the lower perspective, which is a tremendous innovation. That's what the Rebbe explains in the next section. Based on this, we will understand this new innovation that comes about in the lower perspective, meaning the perspective from Memalik Almin, from Shem's immanent light that fills worlds, through the fact that we draw into it the higher perspective. The imeyes, for although Shegam Das Tachten that the lower perspective is also true, as the Rebbe explained in the previous section at length. And there is at least the lower form of unity. What is the lower form of unity? We say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, Baruch Shem Kved Malchus Olam Va'ad. Says the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, based on the Zohar, that Shema Yisrael, the first pasuk, is the idea of Yichud Ilah, the higher unity. Baruch Shem is Yichud Tata, is the lower unity. The difference between the higher unity and the lower unity is that the lower unity is that there is creation, created beings. There is a world, and this world is bottled tolukus, is nullified before Hashem. The higher unity is Ein Eloh V'Adim. There is only Hashem. Yes, there is Aleph, Ches, and Dalet. There is the seven heavens and the earth and the four corners of the world. But they are in a state as they are within Hashem, in a complete state of bittul. The Alter Rebbe explains this at length in Shar Yuchel B'Emunah, which you probably learned, and if you didn't, you should. But these are the two ideas of unity. Either, in other words, these two ideas of unity go along hand in hand with the idea of Das Elyon and Das Tachten, from the perspective of Das Tachten, Lamata Yesh, Lamaila Ayin. Right? From the perspective of Das Elyon, Lamaila Yesh, Lamata Ayin. That makes a difference between Yichud Tato and Yichud Ilah. The lower form of unity goes along with Das Tachten. The higher form of unity goes along with Das Elyon. Right? So therefore, Yichud Tata, the lower form of unity. The Meyese Tata, for although it is a lower unity. Hareze Yichud. If you want to know Kabbalistic terminology, Yichud Tata is Yichud Zun, Zon Nukva. The Midas and Malchus. Yichud Eilah is Chochmah and Bina. Okay? In more detail, it says that Yichud Eilah is an Atzilus, and Yichud Tata are in the realms that follow Atzilus. Okay? But anyway, so Yichud Tata, even though it's low, it's a lower unity, so it's lower. Hareze Yichud. Nevertheless, it's still unity. She'inyani Bittul, which is the idea of nullification. What does that mean? So the Rebbe articulates it further. What does it mean, Yichud Tata? Hashem created a world. Hashem created creatures, created beings who feel themselves as independent, separate existences, right? Almost as self-contained existence, or not only self-contained, but they exist by virtue of their existence and do not feel their source. Nevertheless, through created beings working, serving Hashem, working with themselves. So creation is refined to such an extent that they feel the ayin, the nothingness, the metaphoric nothingness that creates them. Nothing referred to as nothing because without Aveda they don't feel it. So we see, so that's Yichud Tata. Yichud Tata means that we arrive at a stage where we become aware, we feel the source that creates us. So it is a true perspective, a perspective from Das Tachten, a perspective from a Malakal Alman. Nevertheless, it's completely not similar, comparable to the drawing down of the higher perspective. Why? Because the bittul, nullification that stems from the point of view of Das Elyon, is of a different order completely. It's not just greater. It's a completely different order. It's a completely different perspective. So therefore, introducing Das Elyon, the higher perspective, within the lower perspective, is a tremendous innovation. Because it's something that, from the lower perspective, inherently on its own, is not possible. It's not achievable. Therefore, there is a necessity for a type of serving Hashem which draws down the higher perspective into the lower perspective. What is that Avodah? Torah and mitzvahs. Hashem created a tool called Torah and mitzvahs, which allows for something which is inherently beyond the consciousness of created beings to become manifested created beings. How is it possible? When you say manifest, it doesn't mean just overwhelming created beings. It means that it should become part of the consciousness of the created being, of the Das Tachten. How is that possible? If you say that it's inherently unbridgeable, how is it possible that they should ultimately become as one? We can explain the reason. To explain the reason how it is possible for there to be the drawing down of the higher perspective into the lower perspective, when inherently, innately, they are of a different order completely. So the Rebbe explains like this: the root of the created Yesh is from the true Yesh. Who is the true Yesh? Hashem Himself. What does a Yesh mean? Something that exists. The only thing that really and truly exists is who? Is Hashem Himself. Why? Because His existence is from His very essence. And He's not a result from any reason that preceded Him, God forbid. In other words, he's not a consequence from something that preceded Him. He always existed, and His existence is in and within and from Himself. And therefore, because Hashem is the ultimate true existence, or ultimately the only true existence, therefore, this is a quote from Tanya, from Geras HaKodesh, He Himself has the power, the ability, to create yesh kazeh, such a being, who should have the feeling that his existence is from Himself. Meaning to say, us. What does that mean? Only He can create something like this. The afshe ain't a emes. For although it's not true that we exist from ourselves, because we are completely and totally, because really and truly the complete opposite is the truth, that we cannot exist Without the only way we exist is because Hashem wills us into existence. And it's only in our imagination. It's just our imagination, and it's a mistake. This perspective is wrong. Mikol Makim says the Rebbe, nevertheless, the fact alone, that there is room for this idea, for this perspective, the fact that we are able to feel that we exist from ourselves, it's only because the root of the Yesh, and the root of the Yesh, Hanivra, created Yesh, is from the very essence of Hashem, whose being is from his very essence. And it's therefore Shalachain, and therefore Efshar, it is possible, that gives rise to the ability, for the possibility for there to be that feeling that one's existence is from within oneself, meaning the perspective of the Yesh Hanivra, the created Yesh. So in other words, although the created Yesh, who feels himself as his existence coming from himself, is wrong, it's false, this perspective is an imagination. But what gives the ability? Where does this perspective come from? Where does this feeling come from? This feeling comes from the fact that it is Hashem himself, Hashem's very essential force that is within the created force that wills the created being into existence, that allows for the created being to have this perspective that his existence is from within himself.
The nefesh is embodying this. Yeah?
He's talking about the Yesh. The Yesh, the existence of the Yesh. Just one more line, we'll go back to it again. Therefore, what comes out is that there is the essential power of Hashem, not only in the light that creates the Yesh, but also in the actual Yesh himself. The Alter Rebbe explains in the Geras HaKodesh that Hashem himself has the power to create a Yesh Hanivra, a created Yesh. How is that? It's because Hashem's essential power is vested within Hashem's infinite light, and that is vested in the source of the created being. So therefore, there is the Koyach Atzmos, Hashem's essential power within the light, within the power, within the force that creates. In the created force is vested what? Hashem's very essence. Because only Hashem himself can create. So over there, he's medayik, he says, that where is Hashem's essential power? It's vested within the Eir. In other words, it's Eir Sof, which comes into the Kav, which comes into the Spheres, into Malchus Natzilus, and ultimately into creation. Here he goes even further. He says the actual Yesh himself, the actual created being himself, has a aspect where this very essential force of Hashem finds expression. Where is that? In this mistaken perspective that he exists on his own. A created Yesh would not be able to have this feeling that his existence is from himself, and his Kavyoch Chas V'Sholom. No one that precedes him, just exists. That comes from Hashem. That's a reflection, if you will, a manifestation of the true Yesh of Hashem himself. And it's the point that I was going to make, just going to say it orally, and then tomorrow we'll say it inside, the point that I was going to make. And it's in this mistaken Yesh, it's this mistaken perspective of the Yesh HaNivra, that he exists on his own, that is the potential for Das Elyon to find expression in Das Tachten. For Das Elyon, that only the true Yesh is above and below is nothing, that could find expression in Das Tachten, in the lower perspective, that down here is Yesh, and above is nothing. Why? In this mistaken perspective, that mistaken perspective gives rise. What's the perspective? That there is the possibility for something to exist on its own. Just the mistake down here is that it's me. When Das Elyon is revealed in Das Tachten, you realize it's not me, it's Hashem. That's the link. We'll learn about it tomorrow.